Alright guys, here's a little update on the Phatmoto. Had somebody comment and wanted to know things I've done to it. So basically, I bought the bike about 2 years ago, and I maybe ran the stock motor like literally once or twice. That's about it. I couldn't take the fact that it barely could do 30 miles an hour. But one of the first upgrades I did was swapping over to these hydraulic brakes with the hydraulic lines. And if you're running a stock motor, nothing crazy, these work perfect. The front forks, I got these off Amazon about pretty much about as old as the bike is. The shocks are still working good, they don't leak or nothing like that. I then had a 212 on this, and I ran it for a little bit, and then these motors, I came across them, these Stormforce engines, and they were only, at the time, now I see the prices have gone up on them, but at the time that these motors were only like $78 out the door. So I bought 3 of them, and that's all I've ever ran on this bike ever since I bought these motors. And this one, this fresh motor, the last motor, I literally ran the crap out of it. I wanted to see what the motor would take before it would blow, and it never really blew. I just decided when I repainted the whole bike, I might as well just put a fresh motor and just completely start fresh with this thing. But if you're gonna do one of these bigger motors, I would highly recommend doing one of the pit bike brakes for this thing. And what I end up doing is I took an old rotor, which is this piece here, and I basically got it dead center underneath between this to make sure this thing didn't go up or down when it was rolling. And I just cut it, drilled some holes, and mounted this outer the part of the rotor. I actually ordered from China. It took a little bit to get here, but it was the only one I could find that was a 2-piece rotor without the centerpiece. So if you do this, you can find the outer, you just have to make the inner piece. I did make a clip on how I did that. The pit bike brakes, they're pretty simple to get on here. The bottom bolt actually goes right in where the original bolt went, and then I just made this little piece of bracket to be able to go back on the stock mount and then be able to bolt in the top of this. If you run a bigger sprocket than which you won't need to if you do an engine like this, but 52 is the biggest you can, the smallest you can really go. If you go any smaller, then you run into the caliper. But with the 52 on the rear and the 9 on the 30 series, this thing cruises at 45, 50 mile an hour. I usually keep it around, I try to keep it around 40 mile an hour, and then leave the extra, so if you gotta pass somebody or do something like that, you got that little bit extra edge to get going. The rear rim, I did have an issue blowing out the rear end, and so I did what I could do at the time to make the seal bearings for the rear, and it worked for a while. But then there's a guy from the Phatmoto group that he did it but using a filler gauge with a set of bearings. I can link his video into this one if you're interested in it, and that way you can see what he did. I don't really want to show exactly how I did because he's the one I saw it from, so I'll put a link for that. The motor is pretty much stock besides the exhaust, and I've had multiple exhausts on this thing where they came all the way down here. They sounded real good and everything else, but man, after a few months, if you're riding all the time, the vibrations just kill them. And so I just went with the Go Power Sports muffler, and I have not had a problem since I did that. The air breather, I do want to move this air breather. It's fine, it doesn't bother me. I can still pedal it and everything, but I want to move it into here, so it's right here. But that, or I try to find, they make a elbow piece basically that can come off, and maybe I can get it up in here, but I'm worried about mud and stuff and getting up in it. So And then the thing I've been working on now is, this is one of them lithium batteries, the really light ones that barely weigh anything. And I so far I got working tail lights. These were just some old they're for like a trailer or put on your tailgate for trucks and stuff, and I just cut it, shortened it, and then I put it in there. And then it actually has the box right here, so that way if I do turn signals, I had running lights working, but the switch went bad. That's what this extra wire, 2 wires are here for, so I just got to get a new switch for that. I did do a tack because I like to keep an eye on the tack to make sure I'm not over revving this motor, because it doesn't have no billet rod, nothing like that. So I try to keep it under 5,000 RPM. The motor mounts is just some 2x2 square tubing that and the reason I did the tubing is because when you run the 30 series torque converter, you have to shift the motor over. You have to shift the motor this way for it to be a direct lineup for the rear. In my situation, that's how I had to do it. So in using the tubing, it actually worked perfect. I am running the Juggernaut. I love these things. I hate the stock clutch or clutch these things come with. They just rattle and they don't grab as well. This thing here, I've been through rain and everything, and it does not slip. I've never had a problem with it slipping. Where the jack shaft used to be is now the key, basically, because the snowblower engine, they come with these little red keys. So I've got the ignition in there. So now you just stick it in there. Now there's one thing about this that I don't think a lot of people will realize it, but if you unplug this, then it just bypasses this. So I think I'm gonna wire this together and then kind of try to tuck this up in there, kind of hide it. I've never had any issues with the frame cracking. My main reason I went with the 30 series torque converter is because I did do the 212 running off the jack shaft. And one day I decided to put my GoPro and angle it towards the frame and just ride it and see how, because I was wondering if this thing was being torqued, and this was twisting pretty good. So I decided if I got it out of here and went with 30 series, it's going to take all that stress that was on here, it's going to just take it away. Because I've seen people where they get the brakes down here, usually it's on this side where they get the brakes. And since I've done that, I've never had an issue with this frame tweaking or anything. Front rim is still the stock original rim. I've never changed that. Still original front tire. The back tire I did change this year because the rear tire on the other one was pretty bald. I'm running a thumb throttle now. I did have a twist grip, but then I decided just to go to the thumb throttle. And like I said, this is the pit bike, and you do have like emergency brake on it, so you could lock if you wanted to. Oh, the motor mount. It's underneath this battery now, but you can see it right there, the motor mount, and it attaches to the frame right there. I was having a lot of vibration problems, and I did it again where I ran the GoPro and watched the motor while I was riding it, and when you would like get on it or anything, this motor would torque upwards, which then would loosen the chain, and then when the chain loosened, that was all my vibrations. So I went ahead, and this is actually for like a 2-stroke motor. It's like an extension, so you can put if your frame's a little bit bigger. I used that, and then I took a piece of L-shaped steel angle iron, and I bent it into like a U shape or a V, and then I ran the bolts through. And then on these motors, they have, I think the Briggs is trying. I think the Harbor Freight motors, I think they have these on the front too, so if you were to do this, you would have the mountain blade. Basically, that's for the fuel tank, where they bolted the motor to the tank. The paint job is still holding really good. I haven't had any issues with it chipping or anything like that. Sadly, when I sandblasted this frame, that paint that was originally, that green was on this frame, was not thick at all. My sand was pretty worn out, and I didn't even have to run. I ran pretty low pressure because I started low because it's aluminum frame and I didn't want to cut into the frame. And that paint just like came right off. It only took me maybe an hour to sandblast this frame, where I've had other frames that are pretty hard to get the paint back off. And then I got the bell hanging now on the bottom there. And I did upgrade the pedals from them plastic pedals. So yeah, after the pedals, I mean, that's really everything I've done to it. I'm not going to be changing anything with the motor, wheels, sprocket, all this stuff. This stuff's it's perfect the way it is. Now I'm just kind of like, I just wanted some kind of taillights, that way when I'm slowing down, I'm not having to worry about somebody, because there's people behind you that don't realize you're slowing down, and then until they do, then it's all like, oh crap. So basically that's why I went with the taillights, and now the taillights are down there, and they actually will light the hole underneath the seat, especially at night. The whole back of the bike will glow. So I'm working on a headlight. I'm not sure what I'm going to run for a headlight yet. I might even go battery powered just for the headlight, because I don't really do too much riding at night. But yeah, that's everything I've done to it. Can't really think. Oh, the kickstand. Okay, the kickstand, I got it from Amazon. The original kickstand that comes with these bikes, they're not designed to hold this much weight. They will literally, I think within a couple months of mine, it broke. And then I ordered another one because I thought maybe I just wore it out. It did pretty much the same thing. So I went with this one because it's adjustable. It bolts on right there and then clamps up to the top of the frame. So, and I have not had any issues with this. Highly recommend this type of kickstand for these bikes if you're going to do anything like this. And the rear axle is a 12mm axle, not a 3/8. The 3/8 axle will pretty much bend the first time you try to ride it. And so this is actually like a pit bike axle, and that's what I used when I did the bearings and everything. And that I'm not going to bend. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I've done to it. I can't really see anything else that I have done to it. But alright, thanks for watching.